Okay, good day, grade 12. So, yeah, we're going to go on to lesson 2 of 2. So, we did finance. We're now going to be looking at energy and pollution, okay? You can read through the information here. This is going to be going through the book New Wider World, page 118 to 132. Now, I've made a PowerPoint that goes through some of these main points here. So, make a note of these few key words, such as renewable energy. So resources that can be used and reused again. This is compared to recyclable energy fuels, which can be used and reused, but may cause some levels of harm or pollution. This is compared then to non-renewables, such as fossil fuels, despite the fact that they take up the vast majority of what we use for energy in 2014, about 86%, okay? And we've got some of the keywords for you to note down. The first task I'm going to ask you to do after you've noted those down is I'm going to give you a list of types of energy, and you are to put them into the correct column of non-renewable, renewable, and recyclable. Okay, so I've got these types of energy resources here. If you're not sure what hydroelectric power, so that's like from dams. Okay, the water is used to create a power source. Okay, geothermal you would have done when we did in grade 10 about tectonics. So about that geothermal energy, so like in Iceland. Okay, so just put them into the right column here. Just test yourself, have a go at yourself, okay? And then compare them to these answers here, okay? So as you said, non-renewable is the main source around the world: coal, oil, natural gas. But then these are up and coming, let's say, and ways that, and nuclear power is obviously, and we'll look at some of the advantages and disadvantages of these types in a bit, okay? Now, whether a country has these source of energy is based on these three factors, really: the relief and the climate, the geology, so for being able to access things like coal, the accessibility, and the technology, okay? So can they exploit it on a large scale to be able to make it economically worthwhile to be able to afford it? Okay, now in your text, in your PowerPoint, you have this map, but I think it's a bit clearer actually if I just swap this with your textbook, and if you go to 126, we've got whole energy production. Okay, so you've got the production versus actually the consumption, okay? And you can start to notice patterns, okay, between those areas that maybe struggle with energy production and actually compare it to the amount of energy that is produced, okay? And you can really see that, yet generally, there's going to be the countries with the highest amount of consumption is also generally some of the more developed countries, okay? More the MEDCs, as it, and this graph here, so this table here describes that quite clearly. If we go back to here, so go through, make some notes on that. But then we look at the environmental impact. So nuclear, now maybe you saw that TV documentary, Chernobyl, that would be one example of nuclear. The Japan, the Fukushima, what occurred there. And then there are several other things. So you've got the local, the regional, and the global impacts, okay? So just note them down. And we go forward. Just as a little quiz question, as it started, but I'll put it in the middle here. What do these countries have in common? Well, we've got on the left, it's Iceland's flag here, and they have 100% from renewable sources, so from geothermal, and Paraguay from HEP. Okay. So you go through on page 122 to 144, and we're going to look at some of the case studies later. Okay, so 122 to 124. If you go through, it's got this case study here, and in New Zealand, okay, and wind farms in California, okay, and we're just going to go through some of these, okay, but as we come to the case studies later, but first, while we're reviewing all of this, we need this idea. This is a seriously key term if I was, it stretches across pretty much all of geography here. Is this idea of sustainability, okay? And the definition of sustainability, so please copy this down, is improving things for people today without negatively affecting future generations' quality of life, okay? So if, a bit like shifting cultivation, that's done, slash and burn is done so that you can keep on using your land to be able to grow crops, okay? But if you just continued growing crops all the time on the same areas of land, that area of land will become infertile, and that will impact on future generations, so that would not be sustainable, okay? And it goes through, gives you some examples there, okay? So just make notes of them, okay? And we can have social, economic, environmental sustainability, okay? So it's about focusing on people's health and people, education for social, economic for money, for business, environmental for natural preservation, okay? So you can just make a note of those. On 127 in your New Wider World book, you can look at some of the case studies, okay? And we are actually going to look at this one in Alaska, okay? So just have a read through that. Now, I've given some examples of appropriate technology. On 127, if you go to 127, it talks about appropriate technology here, okay? And this is about using technology that's appropriate to the needs, skills, knowledge, and wealth of local people. So, for example, if you gave to some farmers, you gave them a tractor, but they had no money or no access to petrol to run that tractor, or if it broke down, how would they actually fix that tractor? Then it could just become a useless pile of rubbish in the corner. That would not be appropriate technology, okay? And some examples, you can read through the case studies in the book, and some examples are there, okay? This sort of appropriate technology. Now, we're going to do about in Alaska, okay? And as I said, those pages on 128 to 130, okay? This is talking about the location of Alaska. So it's kind of goes over the side here. So it's between the United States and Russia, okay? And with also Canada on the either side. And we're going to look at this company called ExxonMobil, okay? And this is talking about how that they set up this kind of gas extraction facility in one of the most remote regions in the world. However, this both had costs and benefits, okay? Different people are going to support different ideas. It brought in work, it brought in improvements to the economy. However, there were big environmental impacts, okay? And your textbook goes through this, okay? And you can think about which groups of people would be for and against it, okay? That information, again, is on, so I just make some notes about that case study from your textbook in New Wider World. Okay, when you have done that, we're going to move on to the last part, which is about pollution, and we're going to look at environmental management. That's the idea. So we had like sustainable management. It's kind of similar, this environmental management. It's about trying to get the maximum benefit from your resources with the minimal amount of damage to the environment. So this is focused on the environment, okay? So similarities to the sustainable development. So this with conservation, preservation, and prevention of issues. Now, there are many issues that come. So as I've said, this is building on the sustainable development. Forestry. So deforestation can destroy vegetation, which leads to soil erosion. There are things to consider about marine resources, whether it's safe to dredge the sand. Conch shells, they don't, as you can notice, they don't easily clear from the shoreline due to the small tidal range. So many of the conch shells find themselves stuck near the shore. Fish waste. Now this should be recycled and used as fish food deep in the deep water. However, if it is just left by the shore, this kind of changes the ecological balance because it's going to create fishes coming closer to shore that wouldn't normally. Okay, and so there are things to consider. Agriculture, the impacts of irrigation, the water supply, fertilizers. Now, if you have too much artificial fertilizers, there's not going to have the humus that provides nutrients in the soil, and this is going to damage the soil over time, which would impact one, the soil, and also the agricultural business. Manufacturing, or waste is produced from any process of manufacturing. We'll look in that a bit more detail in a second. Tourism, you could think of many more examples. I've just got a few. Airport noise, road traffic, loss of access to beaches, increased harbour pollution, etc. Or I've put the page numbers where you can find these so you can put in extra detail, okay? Settlement, building of houses, malls. This puts the environment under really a lot of pressure, okay? Manufacturing, let's fix it. So this kind of, as I said, always produces some sort of waste, which then leads to a potential for an accident. Waste substances can be a noxious substance, e.g., so like in Freeport, the atmospheric pollution, sulfur dioxide from the high content of sulfur in some fuel oil. Okay, so this has been noted and recorded, and the government have tried to act upon that. Harbour pollution. The ships can carry one invasive species, exotic species, which can endanger native species, impacting the biodiversity in the area. Also have diseases, as you know, with the news and things like that. The cruise ships can bring this great deal of problems. Disposal of waste. Cruise ships bring a lot of waste to the islands, okay? Painting and cleaning. As you paint and clean these boats, the leaching of the toxic chemicals goes into the water, impacting the ecosystem there. So these are all just ideas of things to consider. Oil and chemical spills, construction pipelines, potential of leakages, and the disturbance of local habitats, okay? So I've just gone through that. Now, when you come to do some revision on the pollution, I would also look at some New Wider World. I've put some pages at the bottom here. I've also put them in your instructions here, so that you can then, once you have done that, you will be able to, one, have a go at these questions, upload them, and then complete the online quiz, which is on Plus Portal, which will be a mixture about energy and pollution, okay? So we focus mostly on this lesson 2 of 2, okay? So it's going to be focused on that. And you need to have completed that by May the 1st at 1 p.m, okay? That's the very latest deadline, because obviously Friday, that is when your grade books have to be submitted. If you have any questions about any of this, then please drop me an email, okay? Hope you're all well. Have a good week.